Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, hope you're doing well. Today you join me in a 2007 Renault Clio Renault Sport 197. This is Renault's 197 brake horsepower version of their ever popular and practical Renault Clio hatchback. Renault's got a bit of a history of making hot hatches that are easily affordable and therefore easily disposable, which perhaps adds to their kind of cult classic status later in life when they massively increase in value. Look at the Renault 5 GT Turbos, for example. I remember looking at those when I was a teenager thinking, God, yeah, I'd love to have one of those, but £5,000 is a bit too much for me. Well, you probably couldn't buy a bonnet for £5,000 these days. They are crazy money. Oh, what about the Renault Clio V6? You used to be able to pick those up for around about £10,000 and now they're nearer £80,000. And the same sort of story on a smaller scale has happened with the Clio 172 and 182s. They dropped down to being like £1,000. Maybe you could pick one up, a rough one, for 500 quid. But the price of those have really started to go back up. Maybe because everyone uses them for track cars, which might have been what I wanted them for, but they've priced themselves out of that market now. They are just too expensive. You're looking at good ones starting from £4,000 or £5,000 really. And I wonder if that's what's going to happen with these Clio 197s. Because for some reason currently they're not quite as popular as their predecessor. The 182s are probably more expensive than the 197s. They're more desirable. I think that's partly down to Renault getting quite fancy with this 197 over the 182. The 182 was just your average Renault Clio with a few extra bits bolted on and 180 brake horsepower engine up front, whereas this has some truly proprietary parts to it that were designed specifically for this 197 version of the car, which don't exist on the normal. So it makes it perhaps a little bit harder to work on, certainly more expensive to maintain and run and repair. And for that reason, I think more and more of them, as the prices come down, are going to drop off the road because it's too expensive to try and repair the cast aluminium double wishbone front suspension, which makes it handle incredibly well and pin sharp precise, but it's just so much more money than it would be if it was a Clio 182, where you could use parts off your everyday Renault Clio. Of course, with these you've got to consider the cam belt and dephaser pulleys, all these things that the Renault anoraks are going to come out and want to know if it's been done on this car. Luckily it has, and in fact this is a car that we sold before and we hadn't had those things done. Perhaps it wasn't due at that point, and the chap has had that done. He's had a few modifications done. He's had some wheel spacers put on it, he's had lowering springs put on it, and he has also put in a performance panel filter. So nothing too drastic, but while he was there he had the cam belt and dephaser pulley done, which is great news, as he's now come back to us to sell it back to us, and it's on the forecourt again. So I think the value of these is going to go up eventually. I think it has to. They're undeniably a truly pretty car with really classy, understated styling, which is kind of a bit lost on today's hot hatches, where everything is body kits, spoilers, pure aggressive styling, turbos and pop crackle maps and everything. I think this is a much classier hot hatch and probably more fun in some ways. The ride is quite firm, it's quite bumpy, so it's not the most comfortable thing to perhaps do long journeys in or just potter around town. You are kind of bouncing around a little bit, which can get annoying, but when you're going quicker I think it's worth the sacrifice you make when you're going slow. If you buy one of these now for, like this example, was around about £4,000 on 100,000 miles, can you live with it? Is it still going to be fun in today's world of modern hot hatches? I think so. Handling is so good. You feel so confident. The 2-litre engine's really revvy, kind of urges you to get your foot down, keep it down, and then it just handles everything you throw at it. It reminds me a lot of a Honda Civic Type R, whether that's the EP3 or the FN2, just revving that plucky little engine to get the most out of it. But I think this just feels that much more refined, precise. Handling is definitely better than it would be in the Honda. And talking on the Honda, I think this would be a far better investment than, say, a Honda FN2, which you might buy on the same sort of age and mileage for a similar sort of price, but I think this is going to go up in value. This is going to become more desirable than that FN2, perhaps because, you know, this might be more expensive to run, certainly more difficult to keep on the road, but that will add to its kind of specialness further on down the line. I think if you kept this in the garage and looked after it, kept it clean, kept it serviced, and didn't rack up too many miles on it, within 10 years, easily, this will be twice. This will be £8,000, if not more. I hate to ever sound that kind of cocksure on predicting prices and markets, but I think just take a look at Renault's back catalogue of hot hatches and just see the trend. They all dip down in value. Maybe there's too many of them on the market. They get abused, they end up as track cars, and then 10 years further on from that down the line, everyone's thinking, God, yeah, I love that when I had one. Do you remember those? And it's a case of try and find one, or try and find a decent one. So if you're in the market for a sporty hot hatch and something that's still practical, this has an absolutely huge boot. Reading reviews from other people, that's one of the main things that keeps coming up, is people are amazed how big the boot is. So that's a bonus. And it is comfortable in here. Yes, the ride's a bit firm and you do get bounced around, but the seats are comfortable. It's got a really nice steering wheel. You've got creature comforts, air conditioning is keeping me cool at the moment. It's got cruise control, automatic wipers. It's keyless entry and start. It's still a modern feeling car. So yeah, if you're looking for a naturally aspirated hot hatch, something fun you can enjoy, still semi-practical, and you might like to at least not lose money over the next 5 to 10 year period, then I think you definitely should consider the Renault Clio 197. I think it's a gorgeous car for a start. It's super fun to drive, non-threatening, but still super exciting and enjoyable. So there it is. I think this may be one to watch. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see what happens over the next few years. Someone drag this back up and remind me in a few years' time. We'll see what prices are doing then. In the meantime, if you want to buy this one, check out barrowmotors.co.uk. If you're looking to sell your car, especially hot hatches, interesting things like that, visit carsboughtformore.com. And other than that, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.